were. Who was working the farms?
They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
Fans flew Confederate flags in defiance of NASCAR's request.
My next step would be to get rid of all Confederate flags.
I think it's very disrespectful to our country.
The Confederate flag, a fixture in NASCAR Southern culture for decades, now no longer permitted a place in the sport.
They're trying to take away our culture. They're trying to take away our history.
The president
want to be hillbillies because none of them were really even truly hillbillies. If they weren't boots and buckles and stuff, and they would wear these big Confederate flags across their chest. Into school. I'm from Palo. I've been in Palo Alto for 15 years before I go there. You couldn't get in the city limits with a Confederate flag in Palo Alto. Okay, you drive into this. Try driving this. What? No. And I was appalled. I seen when you see 10 kids with Confederate flags on their chests in school. Think about that. And I've been there. And they're literally harassing the black and brown kids at one little spot where they hung out as they walked by. It was like appalling. And I'm like, this is how it goes down. I went to the principal. I said, Jerry, what's up with the Confederate flag? He said to me, doesn't disrupt the learning environment. I said, Jerry, I'm a teacher. I'm disrupted. You're not disrupted.
You're crazy.
You're not disrupted. I just literally turned around and walked away and made plans to get the hell out of there that day. And it's for you to say that the Confederate flag means anything, then racism means a total ignorance and you don't understand what the Confederacy is about.
Just a good old boy.
People need to go read the Cornerstone speech.
I was just reading that.
Yeah, the Cornerstone speech. It's written by the Vice President of the Confederacy, and it was written 2 days before the Civil War started. And it says that our government is the only government of its kind to be set up on the basic premises that these African slaves are to be subjugated to us for all time. Yeah. They are less than human. They work for us. That's how it's set up. And so as we move to the next sort of topic, that concept of, we've been talking a lot about police brutality and all the problems that police brutality is a symptom. It's not the cause.
As a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. All right, I won't hear. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites.
And all the problems that I face, that Cornell faces, that people in way less privileged positions than Cornell and I face. We are rich for blacks, and lucky, and we still deal with it every single day, every minute of the day, like smog. And so when you're talking about poor black people that don't even have the agency to have people like you in their lives, Josh, it's just a dire situation. And it comes down to that slaves were brought here in 1619. We hit the shores of Virginia in 1619, okay? So 400 years ago. And we were never intended to be anything but slaves. And a lot of people don't know that, they think it was so long ago. So you have to look at the root of America. America was supposed to be the land of the free, yet built on the back of the slaves. Mm. They were free. They were freeing themselves from religious persecution to come here to have freedom, but yet they enslaved Africans, abused and took the land of the Native Americans, and used slaves to build their great society. And then they want to say it's all fair and all free. And go ahead. I'm sorry. I can go.
Oh, you're fine. When you look at the basis of why cops were made, and why we have cops in society now, was to capture slaves, right?
It started as slave
away.
captors.
Yeah, it was
the badges are the exact same. The badges are the same.
Yeah, so that's how it kind of started, and maybe that's kind of deep in our society and our mentality, which makes it hard. I mean, the good thing I can say is society changing. Yes, right. It's getting better.
Yeah.
For every one you catch on camera, it's probably 300 that they didn't catch on camera, or 500, right? So, I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody's arguing me on Facebook, which I should never do. Just like, dude, I was 9 years old when the police put a gun in my face, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting on the curb getting checked growing up. So, to me, that's no big deal. I mean, not no big deal, but it had to be no big deal or you go crazy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
All right.
You had to make it no big deal.
Josh, we were talking the other day. It's like I blocked out more racist things that have happened to me than I can remember. It's like I don't even want to remember. I don't even want to rehash it because it's why would I do that? It would just be silly. I remember the 90s in Des Moines, Iowa, and Omaha, Nebraska. Crack had hit in the 90s, and I remember how they dealt with the crack epidemic, and it was to crack down on them. And it's just amazing to me how much different the meth problem and the pain pills problem has been dealt with. It's like a health problem because it affects white people. And, it's just amazing. And it spans every part of society, from women in childbirth, Black women not being believed that they're in pain. Like they refuse to give Black women pain medicine when they're in childbirth. Stuff you don't even realize, right? You didn't even know that happened. They don't believe you Blacks are in pain. You want them drugs to get high right now. You're not in pain. Or that our pain tolerance is somehow greater than white people, so we don't need the medicine. There's so many myths. And the police brutality, the injustice goes back to sort of the notion of we're less of value. And that's what hurts. And that's what we have to fight against and educate people on. That blue-eyed, brown-eyed, this Jane Elliott, and she talks about the origin of man. And I've read this in a lot of different places, and I want to do more research on the history of the world. But we're all descendants of somebody from Africa. We spread the world. You have people that live in the mountains and have no sun. You have people that live near the equator. You have people that live in Asia and eat fish and live by the water. And people change and evolve based on their environment. But we're all really related. I sent you guys a picture of my great grandfather, my three greats, great grandfather. He was the father of my great grandmother, and he was the brother of the slave owner that owned my grandmother. Okay, or my great grandmother, excuse me. And so through slavery, we're all biracial through slavery, and so for people to be so ignorant to judge people on the pigment of their skin, the melanin in their skin is how you judge my worth, my intelligence. You can't see behind the screen, and it's when I'm a man, Cornell's a man, we deserve respect, we have talent, and we want our opportunities too, just like you get, Josh, just like you get, right? And that's not to say that white people don't have it hard. That's not it. It's saying that all it's saying is your struggles are not attributed to the color of your skin. You have struggles too, because life is suffering, but your struggles are not attributed to the color of your skin.
Right. Yeah. And and I think that's a perfect way to put it, and to move forward with advancing and getting shit right and getting things to where, like we said in the very beginning, to make it better for our children is to understand that everybody has their struggle, and to sit here and to compare mine to yours is silly when we are brothers and sisters. We should be fighting the same fight and going forward with this to eliminate this nonsensical way of thinking, this nonsensical way of approaching our fellow human beings and the way that they live and the judgment that we place on them. It's about, like we said, getting rid of it and figuring out a way that we can all move forward without it. And understanding that the sooner that we're able to do that, the better these things are going to be, and the better everybody's going to be.
So let's talk solutions. Like Cornell, what if you had like things that you think that could help the problem
For the world or wrestling?
Both. Let's do both.
For the world, I think, man, with the police brutality and stuff is so hard. I think, I think maybe a little bit more training for the police officers as far as like more, either that or more, like I think it was 8 weeks to be a cop and you're already a cop, and it's like 12 weeks to be a professional, other things that you have to do. I forgot somebody says like 8 weeks to be a cop and 12 weeks to be, nursing school. Look how long you got to go to nursing school to become a nurse, and our teachers. And I think it's basically 8 weeks for cops. So maybe they need to put a little bit more impact on that. And especially if, like the man who killed George Floyd, he had already had 16 complaints and nothing was ever done. That system has got to really get looked into. And the thing with Aubrey, what?
I wanted to just get some clarification on that. So you think that it's more of a policies and laws thing as opposed to hearts and minds?
Yeah, it's hearts and minds, but I don't know. It's so deep in America. Can you really change it? Like, can you change the only way I think it does change is maybe our generation and younger, with people like Josh and who's been around more people. It's still some cops who've never been around black people until they became cops.
Right.
So, until, maybe this generation and people who grew up around, the kids who I've coached my whole years where they had a black head coach. Imagine how so many white kids in wrestling who never had a black coach before, ever. Right? So, and they get to come to my house and see how I live and joke with me. So their view might be totally different than some of these guys. So some of this generation come up to where, how many teams have you seen where it's one black coach and an all-white team? You haven't seen that as much. But you always see maybe an all-black.
I had it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. So, or like an all-black team and a white coach. We always kind of see that one. But you never see it the other way around. So I think maybe it's the generation can help that mentality, but I don't know, man. It's so deep inbred in our society that, just the other day in Washington, Missouri, they put out a newspaper, a cartoon of a black man robbing a white lady and said, and the black guy is putting a gun to her head and trying to rob her. She's like, I'm calling the police. And the black guy says, nope, they defunded the program now. Right away, they put this out. It's unbelievable. You think I'm lying to you.
That's black fear mongering. What that is. That's actually trying to create fear amongst the white community to go against this defunding police. That's a slick cartoon right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna find it. If you guys start talking, I'm gonna find it. I got it somewhere.
Please.
I'm like, no way.
You send it to me. I'll put it actually in the video while we're talking.
All right.
Josh, you had something to say about that? I was going to add something, but I want to hear from you.
No, so I think the education needs to happen. Like I was saying earlier, so this stuff has been on my mind for as long as it happened, since the day it happened, right? I wanted to know, or I wanted to act, right? I wanted to get something going. I wanted to be able to try to help in however I could, but I didn't know what to do necessarily. And so I sat back because I felt like anything that I said, anything that I came out and posted, I felt like it was kind of phony and virtue signaling and trying to be, I could get 500 likes on a post, but am I doing really anything with it? Is that mean anything? So what I reserved to do was hold my words in and not really speak on anything right away, because I wanted to better understand what the steps were and what the feelings are going into this situation, so that I had an educated response to these things that are going on. And what that did for me, it put things into a better perspective for me, and allowed me the opportunity to jump on here with you guys and have an open dialogue and understand that now I'm prepared to do this. And now I think that I'm more prepared to convey this to my athletes, to convey this to my family, to the people that I'm around. And that's part of what can help change this, right? Yeah, there are some people that are going to be too far gone. It's just, they're not going to want to change. People are stubborn. People are hard-headed. They don't even think it's a problem. So maybe that's not where, I mean, you want to pull them in too, but maybe that's not where we focus. We focus on the education of the younger people, the people that want to be educated, and you get them to realize what the process looks like to make this better. And are there concrete answers right now? Maybe not, but if we're able to have this conversation right now on a bigger level and to spread that out, I think that's how we can best have an impact and get people heard, right? Because these conversations aren't happening. I've never had this conversation in my life before, not once.
That's pretty awesome.
Me
So,
neither. Not,
you know,
I mean, with black people, yes, but not with a white person who's willing to take it. I mean, not to cut you off. I remember I was. You go ahead and finish, but I got a good story for this.
No, but that's a perfect ending to it. Is that's what needs to happen. These tough talks, these tough conversations need to happen. And if they're not happening, this is going to continue, and it's going to cycle back. It'll go away. And
well, I think that's exactly right. If white men don't realize their privilege and don't realize, my buddy Danny Struck, another guy I really love, white guy, great coach, lots of heart. One of the things he said to me that stuck out to me, he says, a lot of white people will never know they're racist and will never think they're racist, even though they are racist.
Oh, yeah.
So, per the definition that we have, and as he educates himself about racism, he's like, man, I didn't know. He's like, oh, they're talking about racist. They're not talking about me. So he just shuts off. But as he listened further, he's like, oh, they are talking about me, and they're talking about a lot of other people that I associate with that are not bad people. They're not bad people. And I think that's something that needs to continue to be said by black people is we just want you to own it. We don't want to condemn you. You stop telling us it's not real. You understand the historical context of how we got to this point, and don't put your head in the sand because it's uncomfortable conversation. And then I think we can institute some change. Until then, and I want to get back to your story, Cornell. I asked my mother about it. She said, kind of like what Cornell is saying, like, can we really change hearts and minds? I'm like, I think at this inflection point, a moment in the United States, we need to go after hearts and minds, but we need to settle for laws and policy.
Yes.
And
That's a good way to explain it.
Right? We shoot for the moon. We're going to settle for this, but we're going to shoot for this right now and hope you guys really, really listen and change, and this doesn't die off after another 2 weeks after the protests have stopped. But really go after their hearts and minds and training, but their laws need to change. To me, it seems like, and I don't want to make this political, but it seems like the GOP exists to suppress black people. And I just say it. It's like, you want to say it's about financial conservatism. The debt's exploded out of this world. You want to say it's about, what else is there that the GOP can actually brag on except for putting money in your pocket, right? At least claiming to put money in your pocket. And my contention is like Donald Trump, and had he started his political career on racism, on the birther movement. That's what he started on. And now he kind of do this song and dance with finances and make it seem like we're making more money, even though, the statistics show that it's, the middle lower class is not doing better. It's other people, the people that are already have affluence and have stocks and things like that. But it's, what do you really like about this guy? You know, and you can point to the First Step Act and things that he's done policy-wise that quote unquote help Black and brown people. None of that really matters with the rhetoric that you're putting out. And then also the judges that you employ, right? So you can make First Step Act, but if you hire the most conservative judges you can possibly find that are like law and order judges, then none of that really matters anyways. But what is it that you really like about this guy? And I think I know what it is. And so that's hurtful. That's why we need to, so first solutions to me is like vote. We got to vote. We got to vote. We got to get different people in office that are going to institute different. And I know some people are going to come back with the Democrats aren't on Black people's side too, and Democrats are using Black people for the vote, not doing anything. And there's, without a doubt, there's some element to that. I won't deny that. I don't think that, I want to trust that they're going to do an honest job this time when they get back in power, especially when we get in control of the presidency. But even being said, I'd rather have pretend people not espouse racist views out loud and make society a kinder place and at least fake it than at least it's a kinder, gentler racism with the Democrats, you know. And so as Black people, we can't be so choosy, you know. We're Black, and so there's a lot of fear involved, and especially fear with our vote. And we want better, and we want somebody that's not going to espouse racist things. And you know, one of the things he said today, like just the taking the names of Confederate leaders off of these military bases, he's against that. Like, why would you be against that right now? Like, you're sending a clear message. You got a picture of Andrew Jackson behind you at your desk. All the presidents you could put up there, and you got Andrew Jackson behind you on your desk. Why is that? Charlottesville. Why is that? So he's like, he's shown us who he is. The birtherism. And so anybody that can deny that is really being disingenuous, I think, or really, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to somebody who can just deny that is what it is. So as far as government, I think, and changing the world, I think we go up to hearts and minds, but we change policies. I did want to get back to you, Cornell, quickly, and I want to know your story, but I also want to know, what do you think makes wrestling racist?
I think it's kind of like America. They don't really want to be racist. They just don't really want to accept it. I think one thing, just from my experiences alone, and just being in Missouri, is I didn't really understand. I was very naive. So I knew there was racism, but I didn't really know how people use it, if that makes sense. I mean, I can, like, what you said, calling me N-word to my face, that's easy stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's easy, right?
Yeah.
But for you to get a group of people team up on me and decide on how to dismantle my life and make sure I can't move ahead is a whole different ball game.
It's scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I didn't understand. But now I understand it. So I thank all of them. Right. Mm-hmm. And one thing about, you know, I know we're talking negative about it, but one thing I can say about it is they helped motivate me to be a better coach. Right. Mm-hmm. Or to try to achieve stuff that they haven't achieved.
You got to be Teflon. You got to be Teflon. Yeah. You got to be all your P's and Q's.
Yeah. So I didn't really understand that good old boy system, which I didn't get, and I was very naive to. So, but
me too, brother. Me too.
Yeah. So one thing about stats, I know everybody always completing stats, and they were saying, well, you know, speaking of the young lady you talked about earlier, just, you know, more white people were abused by cops, and I was like, and somebody tried to say that to me, I was like, hey, I teach at a school that's 85 to 90% white, 10% Black at the most part. And you know who has the most? Our referrals are 95% Black. How is that?
That doesn't shock me.
It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same concept. Mm-hmm. And you know, just going, I'm hitting it fast here. Just quick stories. Just going with Josh. We're talking about like having this conversation. I remember at my job again teaching. I walked in, and like it was like an open house. I didn't have nothing to do, and I was walking around my school, and a whole group of teachers, white teachers for sure, they're all gathered up in this room watching the video. And I was, oh, I'm coming and see what they're doing. And they closed the door like, don't let them in. I'm like, really? Like, why would they do that? And I opened the door like, what are y'all doing? Watching racist videos? And yeah,
Sure enough.
racist videos. Sure enough, right?
Wow.
And I have a Jewish guy that teaches with me. And I was like, man, they was really in there watching racist videos. He's like, show me the video. So I found it on YouTube. And he was like, that's not racist. I'm like, dude, it's monkeys, it's black people, it's I mean, anything you can think of stereotypical. It was on this video. But he knew it was racist. He was trying to get me to calm down. Like he was trying to mind, you know what I'm saying? Like, no, don't say nothing about it. Because he knew those teachers and he knew how much trouble they get. I'm like, I said, man, to be honest with you, I wouldn't probably tell just because I know if I go tell, then my life is going to be rough.
Who are you going to tell?
Right, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to be like, and I tell my principal and he'll say, hey, shrug it off. So just a quick story. So it happened to, our superintendent just got hired and he was a black guy and he came in and I was telling him the story and nobody wanted to talk about it. They all ran out. Like, I'm done. Nobody wanted to talk about it. So at least I only talk about that story, just the video. They didn't want to talk about that video. Just funny on that. And then the last thing, like the new racism that I kind of had to understand, coaching job I met, the Harris assistant coach, they're going to pay him more than they pay me, the head coach. Right? I'm like, what world do you live in? So when I go to complain to the boss, he was like, oh, what is it all about the money with you? Well, hell yeah, I'm the money coach. So how you going to make me feel bad for you paying somebody more than you pay the head coach who works their butt off?
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
No, it's
So
not.
those are my quick stories.
It's not crazy.
And that's the kind of racism right there.
Yeah.
That you deal with.
Well, and just, to circle back to the three cases we talked about, to me, I think that police brutality is just a symptom of white supremacy. So if we actually talk about white supremacy and people understand how we got to be a white supremacist nation, that's not Nazis and pitchforks. That's not white supremacy, and white supremacists are not what people think. It's like most of the presidents were white supremacists, except for one, and so it's not like that you're out hunting down black people if you're a white supremacist. Now, white supremacists do that. Those guys I would categorize more as Nazis or KKK or right-wing extremist groups. But the notion of we're less than leads to them beating us up, them taking our lives, them not hearing us, not seeing us, not giving us opportunities in jobs, not giving us appropriate housing. Like, think about Flint, Michigan, right? And what's going on with the water there. Would that ever in a million years happen to a white community? Ever?
No.
They would solve that problem. Okay. And there's a great book called The Color of Law that will tell you about how they strategically put like landfills and waste dumps in black communities. It made me think of Fat Albert and how they're always in the junkyard. And I was like, that's some real history right there. That's typical of where black people were during that time and hanging out in a junkyard. And you get friends. I mean, it's super deep. It's super deep. I wanted to hear from you, Josh. So what do you think makes wrestling, or do you think wrestling's racist? And if so, what do you think? Why?
Yeah, I think that, just on the ideas that we've kind of gone into with the kind of shrug it off, look the other way, turn the other cheek kind of mentality. I think that's hyper prevalent in wrestling, right? Like, like you guys say, like, there's not that many black coaches, like, and then when the coaches that we do have are put into this box where they don't feel like they have anybody backing them, or they have anybody to turn to when things go poorly, when things go wrong, when they're wronged. So that's, those kind of, without any structure there for black coaches to rely on, it's gonna be racist by nature. It is what it is, because there's no structure for you guys to turn to, for you guys to feel comfortable with. We were talking earlier about about just that, like how you had to become a better coach, and blessing in disguise, I guess. But you guys are phenomenal coaches anyways. But you had to be a better coach because you had to mind yourself more. And that's not something that I don't have to deal with. I think Safe Sport is putting a little bit more of fear in coaches in general. But I think that there is a lack of like, especially at just say the Division I level, the amount of black head coaches. I don't even know what
two out of 78, I believe.
2 out of 78. So
and one just got
actually it's 3 though. I just talked. You got Angel Escobedo, Glenn Linehan, and then now Chris Pendleton. So 3.
Okay. So 3. So I mean, just in that, there's a reason for that, right? Like there's obviously a reason for that. Whether it's they're not afforded the same opportunities to get those positions, or there's things that are being overlooked, right? Because there's definitely coaches out there that would make terrific Division I head coaches, and that need deserve the shot,
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to you earlier, BC, about the refereeing, right? And so this kind of stemmed from Coach Monday's story on the USA Wrestling Talk, and he was talking about when he was coming up and the racist refs basically like taking matches from him, and he took it as like, dude, I'm just gonna get so good that they can't take it from me. Mm-hmm. What about that? So if that's happening back then, it's for sure still happening. There's still poor referees that think like that, still referees that take matches into their own hands like that. And for me, what about the young black athletes that don't have the resolve that Kenny Monday had? And they go and they're getting matches taken from them, or they're getting treated poorly on the mat, and they say, why would I keep wrestling? Like, it's not welcoming. It's not something that is gonna, I don't want a future in it, because the people that are in it are treating me like shit. So why would I want to do it? So they take off and they don't wrestle throughout their careers. Like, I just think about that. And
well, it's so interesting that you say that, because that's exactly what happens to blacks in the workplace. Exact same thing that happens to coaches in the workplace, black coaches, Tyrone Willingham, to Sean Charles, to Bobby Douglas, to myself, to Cornell, is we get – actually, during my master's degree, I got a master's at San Francisco State, and at the same time you were wrestling there, and I did a paper on sociology of sport, and it was about the injustice and why – the title is, why aren't there more black head coaches in college football? Okay, and it was 117 Division I schools, and at the time there were 7 black coaches. Okay, 7 black coaches. 85% of the players were black. Okay, so there's obviously a large pool of qualified applicants coming out of this. They're graduating kids. They have the knowledge. They're obviously qualified, and they don't get opportunities. And what the studies came back, and it was a bunch of studies I read to put this paper together. But basically, it said is, we get into these jobs and we have such horrible experiences. You get such horrible experiences. They turn on you. You get attacked. You get watched. You get held to a different standard. Things that you do and say are misperceived, and you get told it's short-lived, or they either push you out or you get out on your own because you go, this is not for me. I can't hack it, and it's a damn shame. And it happens over and over, and it's still happening. And there's a lot of, not to name names, but the Cliff Kingsbury for the Kingsbury or Kingsbury, I think. Kingsbury, the guy from the Arizona Cardinals. He jumped over a whole bunch of coaches that were more qualified to him to get that Arizona job, and he really didn't have much of a resume to get that job. Good-looking white dude, He looks like he probably looked good on the sidelines. Maybe that's what they were looking for. But those are examples of opportunities that we would never get with that resume versus that type of competition. They would never pick a black guy in that situation. And so it's just one example, and I'm not dissing that coach either. You know, it's not his fault. He's taking advantage of his white privilege. You know, maybe I would too, but it just is what it is. And I think with that being said, do any of you guys have anything you want to close it up with? I know, Cornell, you got a workout to get through.
I gotta get running, boys, man. I definitely appreciate you having a talk, Josh. I'm definitely thankful for you being here and just trying to, you know, help everybody get a different point of view too. You know, it's good to know what everybody's thinking. So kudos for you for that, man. I definitely see that, you know, for you to be in this situation, I think Brahman and you must have a real good friendship. So that's tough. That's tough. So I just thank you for inviting me, man. I'm gonna have to get out of here, but definitely I would love to come on again.
Yeah.
Next time I need to be smarter with the West Coast and Central Time. So
we have to go earlier in the day. Hey, thank you, man. Josh,
thank you.
We'll hook up and we'll talk again and reconvene on this and get back together again. Okay, man. Talk to you soon.
Right.
Down. Heavyweights are done, I believe.
Yeah.
CBC. Tell me about CBC's weekend. And let me tell you. Let me first apologize that didn't interview you last year when you guys won state title.
Yeah. I appreciate the apology. Crazy weekend, you know, up and down as usual. It's been a crazy